Brianna Wu got attacked by J.K. Rowling. Never forget, gender identity isn't about sex stereotypes, but playing around with your hair proves you're not a man. Brianna Wu, I know that there's an angry crowd that will never believe trans women are an admittedly weird variation of woman, but for people in the middle, here's 25 minutes of Dollcast show just talking about doing our hair. Can anyone honestly say we would make sense living as men? J.K. Rowling saw that and got very mad about it and said, never forget, gender identity isn't about sex stereotypes, but playing around with your hair proves you're not a man. Brianna Wu responded to her with this long-ass effort post. Miss Rowling, first of all, our show is about moderate trans positions. If you watched it, you probably agree with many of our positions. We don't support trans women in sports. We have severe reservations about the trans fringe. We don't like the way it's medicalizing children, particularly young girls, and that's considering 2 of our hosts transitioned as minors. This clip about 4 trans women having the kinds of conversations most women have. We're trying to get people like you to see our humanity. None of us would be happy if you forced us to live as men. There's a political project pushing everyone to the extremes right now. I've taken a lot of heat denouncing the trans fringe, the same people that have sent you death threats. Neither of us have to be a part of it. We really can find solutions that work for everyone. You are welcome on the Dollcast show anytime. And it's really funny because Achievement Unlocked, both India Willoughby and J.K. Rowling hate the moderate trans politics of Dollcast. India attacked us the other day and we responded. We were fairly frustrated because we don't feel like she actually watched the show enough to understand what we're doing. I don't know why. I mean, I think I do know why Brianna Wu doesn't get it, because she's just fucking stupid. Like, that's it. Okay? That's it. She's just fucking dumb. So I don't think she understands this even as a trans person, that like a transphobic person did not logically arrive at the conclusion of transphobia. They didn't logic their way there, okay? They didn't go, ooh, the extreme fringes are scaring me, okay? No, transphobic people think you are an aberration that must be forcibly excised from society. They think you are a morally degenerate pervert that needs to be killed, okay? So I don't understand why you try to go to those people and go, no, you don't understand. We're actually in agreement. We're actually totally in fucking agreement. Please recognize my humanity. It's just not going to happen. I'll take it one step further. I have an infinitely easier time converting a transphobic person away from having transphobic positions than Brianna Wu does, especially with that kind of fucking rhetoric. Okay? And the reality of that matter is, it's because I'm a cisgender heterosexual man. Because guess what? Lo and behold, shockingly enough, transphobic people who are either on, who have this predisposition or who are on their journey towards like extreme levels of transphobia, like fucking J.K. Rowling, are not going to listen to a trans person because their starting position is that trans people are not normal and they're fucked up and wrong and evil. Transphobia is, quite aptly put, the dehumanization of trans people. J.K. Rowling does not see you as a human being. Why the fuck would she ever do that? Anyway, Dreamleaf says, uh-oh, looks like Brianna's little pick-me act isn't working on J.K. Rowling. Of course it's not. I disagree. The only way that you can, as a trans person, get an otherwise transphobic person to no longer be transphobic is by being a cool person, being a cool and normal person, like a coworker or whatever. That is the greatest antidote to transphobia. All right? It's something that I talk about quite frequently. But someone like J.K. Rowling, especially when they're getting fucking hugboxed and getting prominence by other fucking like-minded psychopathic transphobic people online, is never going to turn around and see you as a human being. That's it. Do you get it? It's something that I talk about quite frequently. If, ironically enough, if Brianna Wu wasn't this like stupid fucking weirdo who was constantly conceding to the whims of transphobes or whatever, and was just like a normal person with normal hobbies, didn't fucking talk about this shit all the time, and somehow found herself around transphobic people, she could probably actively de-radicalize people away from transphobic positions by just existing as a normal person. But she, much like many other people, personally think that, you can if you're a black person, for example, if you kind of lean into the whims of white supremacists, then you'll be able to get white supremacists to recognize your humanity. You won't even be able to get the white supremacists to recognize your own individual humanity as a loyal servant of white supremacy, let alone other black people. That's not how this works. It's ridiculous. Are you always like this, or was yesterday just special? I don't know. Are you going to show up to my house and throw me off a building? Good stuff. Where does the throwing people off buildings Islamophobia meta come from? I think ISIS. Does she mean that in a racist anti-Islam way? What does that mean? Yes. This is why I always tell people, like, you can't hug and kiss conservatives and like lean into their insanity. Okay. You can't do that. Like, that's not, if your goal is to actively decouple them from the whims of reactionary sentiment, you can't do that by compromising with them and telling them, like, you know what, honestly, you're right on this. Okay. You can't tolerate their intolerance because their intolerance is inherently illogical. Their intolerance is not coming from a place of genuine concern, but pure anger. And oftentimes, it is a very apt mechanism of distraction and deflection away from the real vectors of harm in contemporary society. It's stupid. This doesn't mean that you should, like, I don't know, actively treat anyone and everyone as though they're fucking Charlie Kirk. You know what I mean? Like a professional villain. But it certainly means that it certainly means that, like, stay true to your convictions and try to find areas where you do agree that do not pertain to shitting on trans people or shitting on black people or capitulating to white supremacist ideals. You can stay civil, especially when you're having a conversation with, you know, normal conservatives who are victims of propaganda themselves, understanding that they arrived at these positions due to so much social conditioning. Okay? Yo, you just said not to compromise. You need to be more careful with your words. Yes. Never compromise on your values. The fuck do you mean? Never compromise on your values and never capitulate to right-wing framing. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that you should also be antagonistic or aggressive to your fucking some random conservative person that you met. Okay? I try to play this delicate line fairly well to the best of my ability. You can find similarities, you can find shared interests, you can find areas of civility, you can find areas where you're in agreement. That is how you're supposed to do that. That is actually a very successful way, in my opinion, of actively de-radicalizing people. But the similarities that you find should not be centered around how you also personally think, yeah, some of these trans people are fucking weird and gross. Like, creating a permission structure to shit on trans people is fucking stupid, because all of a sudden now you're just continuously normalizing their attitude. You're giving them additional security in their bigotry rather than try to decouple them away from this bigoted way of understanding the world. Now, of course, Charlie Kirk himself is not, you know, a random conservative guy. He is actively working to create more random conservative guys and doing it fairly successfully. He is a part of a major machine, and his wealth and his prominence in this world relies on him successfully doing so, relies on him actively turning people more conservative.
So you got to know what to convince the American people of and what to hold your ground on. And the number one thing to hold your ground on is constitutional rights. So I'm going to do some...
Like the Second Amendment.
What? You said not to compromise with conservatives is about finding middle ground? No, dude. You completely misunderstand my point. Okay? You completely misunderstand my point. What do you mean finding a middle ground? Okay, conservatives say kill all trans people. What's the middle ground? You say kill no trans people. The middle ground is what? Kill 50% of trans people? In this hypothetical, do you find that we've reached a good compromise? Conservatives say mass deport every single immigrant living on U.S. soil. You say don't mass deport any immigrant living on U.S. soil. Is the middle ground that we just deport, what, 10 million migrants then? Like, the idea that there is a golden mean in every fucking situation is perhaps one of the most commonly misunderstood positions that people just slap on to every single instance where it doesn't fucking fit, okay? It is so stupid. If the fundamental principles are completely flawed, you can't fucking compromise on that. Okay? No, it's about trying to understand why they think that way. Usually they have misinformation. It's about educating them by finding where they're at. What do you mean? Okay, you can't say it's about finding middle ground. Ironic, because you just started this process by saying you need to be more careful with your words. And then you literally went into a position that is entirely different than this. Maybe you should be more careful with your words, chatter. The fuck do you mean? You say it's about finding middle ground. No, it's about trying to understand why they think that way. Usually they have misinformation. It's about educating them by finding where they're at. Yeah, I don't disagree with this. And not only do I not disagree with this, this is something that I believe personally as well. I know where a lot of that that false belief comes from. I just described it. If you were listening to my words, you would have understood it. I said it comes from social conditioning, but it's not about finding middle ground. It's about finding common ground. And it's about reorienting people's anger to the appropriate vectors of pain. It's about recognizing where that harm comes from and then saying, I see you, I feel you, and I know exactly where it's coming from. It's not like one of the easiest ways to kind of just judo your way out of this argument whenever someone is being like hyper transphobic is telling them like, it's not, you know, your manager is not a trans person. Okay. BlackRock buying out the remainder of the available housing inventory is not conducted at the behest of big trans. It's not a trans person. It's not an undocumented migrant that's like your landlord that is causing you pain in your life. It's not an undocumented migrant that's your manager, okay? And even if they were, they're not doing that because they're an undocumented migrant or trans. They're doing that because that's the position that they have arrived at in society. Society has normalized this kind of infliction of pain. Yeah. People be like, I'm so mad that eggs are $8.